I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day: why are political conspiracy theories so popular? Now, the reason I'm asking that question is because it seems to me that McCarthyism is back in a big way, baby. It's now all about Reds under the bed. It's all about the Russians, and the Russians are controlling everything that's going on in America, and everyone's a puppet of Russia, and Russia influenced the election, and if it wasn't for Russia, the election outcome would have been different. This is sort of the conspiracy du jour. It is the thing that everyone is so obsessed with now. Now, it's not new though. Remember when Obama was president, and there were people claiming that he wasn't a legitimate president because of his birth certificate, and if we could just dig up the original birth certificate, we would find a conspiracy here, and he had no real entitlement to be president. Or there were people who were suggesting at one point that he was really a secret Muslim. Now, you thought that the H stood for Hussein, you know, Barack Hussein Obama. It really stands for halal certified. That's what it really means. He is halal certified by the Muslim Brotherhood. And so there was this conspiracy theory about Obama. These things gain traction with certain groups, but at the moment it seems the whole Russiagate thing is just like, as I said, McCarthyism is back in a big way. I think part of the problem at the moment is that the media are now just so willing to propagate these wild-eyed conspiracy theories without sort of so much as even basic sort of fact-checking or simple journalistic ethics. You know, actually, should we verify whether or not this is accurate before we publish it? Or should we just publish it and say, maybe this is a smoking gun? Who knows? And what you end up doing is sort of fueling the fire. I don't know why this is happening. Well, I have a suspicion. I have a strong suspicion about why this is happening. I think it's because Trump is so wildly unpopular, and particularly with a lot of the people who work in the media who have a tendency to lean left in their politics, particularly in America. They would not have been Trump voters. They would have been Hillary voters. And so there's sort of a political convenience here. They're now willing to do things that they would have never tolerated with a Democratic candidate or president. They're now more than happy to do that here in this situation. And the problem is it's sort of reached fever pitch now. And it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. I mean, who knows what's really going on here, but it doesn't matter about what the truth is, because if you repeat a story often enough, the truth or the falsity of that story it becomes largely irrelevant. It's just people start to believe the idea that, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, that's absurd, because it could well be that the smoke you're seeing is nothing more than a bunch of journalists who are puffing away on cigarettes and blowing the smoke in your face. But what happens is, even good, well-meaning people start to think, well, you know, maybe there is something to this, because we're hearing about it so often and it's just always in the news. The media wouldn't lie to us. You know, there's got to be something more going on here. As I said, there's nothing new about this, though. I mean, if you go back to the JFK presidency, there were people who were accusing him of being a puppet of the Pope, and they were claiming, look, because this guy's a Catholic, he's actually controlled by the Vatican, and we're going to have the papacy, the Pope's going to be running America if this guy gets elected. You know, there's nothing new about these types of conspiracy theories. The difference today, though, is the way in which, as I said, the media now is just so willing to pump any old information out into the ethosphere, into the public arena, without bothering to even do basic fact-checking about whether or not that information is accurate or not. So why are these political conspiracy theories so popular? Why do, whether you are on the left or the right or in the centre, why do so many people sort of jump at these political conspiracy theories and always try and sort of apply them to their political opponents or to the politicians that they disagree with? Well, I think there's two big reasons. Number one is because it is easier to demonise than it is to debate. This is sort of one of the frailties of human nature. It has been with us since the beginning, the tendency to gossip and to accusation and to try and slander someone else's name, because it's a nice, easy, convenient way of not having to deal with difficult realities, particularly when you're talking about politics politics and governance and leadership of a nation, and often some big things. I think particularly in the West, we are facing some big questions and some big issues now, and there's going to have to be some really hard solutions that are applied to the big problems we're facing. And it's much easier to sort of not have to face up to some of those things. It just becomes easier to sort of demonize someone than it is to debate and to engage in a discussion of ideas. It's just easier to slur their name and then you deal with it. It's the typical old-fashioned ad hominem attack. That person is a Russian puppet. And it doesn't matter what they say or do, they're a Russian puppet, and it's sort of just, it becomes the thing that allows you to sort of negate having to actually engage too deeply on issues. And secondly, I think it's a way of having your cake and eating it too. If there is some big political conspiracy here, particularly some idea about, Barack Obama, was he really a legitimate president? Or Trump, is he really a legitimate president? It's the same thing when you look at a different take, but it's the same underlying conspiracy theory here, that they have no legitimate claim to be president. Then it allows you to have your cake and eat it too. You can say, well, my guy or my girl lost because of this political conspiracy. The Illuminati have worked their magic and weaseled their way into the presidency, and that's why, but everyone knows that if it wasn't for the Russians, then Hillary would right now be our president. So you sort of get to have your cake and eat it too. You get to support a losing candidate and at the same time still claim that they weren't really the losing candidate. Instead, they were the victim of some evil collusion. They were the victim of some conspiracy. Really, Obama shouldn't be the president. He's not a legitimate president. He was put there because of this conspiracy, And so it becomes an easy thing to do. The problem is, as I said, it's so toxic. It really is toxic. It's not just politics. This happens everywhere. But what happens is it becomes a convenient way of not actually engaging with important issues. It becomes an easy way of opting out of exploring the big and hard questions. And like I said, at the moment in the West, we are facing some very big, some very deep, and I think some very hard questions that need to be asked about what our future is going to look like and what sort of path we are going to have to chart in order to get there. But if we're constantly obsessing about whether or not the Russians put someone in power, then we don't really have to ask those big questions. And all of a sudden we've become sidetracked, and I don't think it's a good thing at all. As per usual, I'd love to know your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on Patreon. There is a link in the description below and a link on screen at the end of this video. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you next week on The Daily Question.